work with the planning board to come back to us?
At the moment, the land court has remanded the hearing to the planning board. We have a hearing scheduled for December 18th with the planning board. We are filing revised plans with them by December 4th through Matt Eddy's office. So I'm optimistic that, by the first of the year, we'll be able to know where we stand with the planning board.
Okay, so that almost 2 months, will that give you enough time to make changes or anything?
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of reverb again, but I think the second meeting in February, which is what we requested, will hopefully give us enough time to know where we stand with the planning board.
Okay. Any questions from commissioners on this, on the continuance, which would be?
No, they want to go to.
Richard, Sandy, I think before I speak. What's your
responding to the directions of the land court here, who has ordered, the planning board to reopen the hearing and reconsider the application. So until that happens, there's nothing further for us to move forward. And, we are optimistic that with this meeting coming up in 3 weeks, we're going to be able to make some progress with the logjam we're in.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Anybody want to make a motion? Proposed were designed by Andrew Garrelay, and there were some requested changes to some of the plant species that I think Andrew addressed and submitted to you on the current landscape plan. But I'm going to turn it over to Andrew to go through the particulars, and then I'm here to answer any questions.
But I'm thinking it's because there's no Zoom.
Yeah, but are they speak?
Hi, Andrew Garrelay, Yarmouth Port Design Group. Just to kind of give you a quick walkthrough of it, there's kind of three things going on the site. One of which is the mitigation area, which you can see in at the top of the screen there. This is the planting plan from last spring, in which, at the last hearing, the only comment and feedback that I got from anybody regarding the landscape plan was Drew asked if I could use facultative wetland plants in that buffer. And it doesn't appear that you received that plan that I recently did with, it's the same mitigation area, I just have now all facultative wetland species in it, which I'm holding in my hand here. Doesn't look like you got it. It would have been dated 10/24/24. Looks like it was there.
Yeah, I guess not.
Yeah, it doesn't look like.
So we don't have the latest landscape plan?
But yeah, but
It was minor changes, though.
identical, except of that change of plans, but I have a copy of it that I could give to you if you're willing to accept that with the planting plan change. Well, I guess we can talk about that a little bit later. There were some trees that were being removed. You'll see the red X's on the plan, and we have mitigation for those trees in the form of red oaks, which you can see are green canopy trees that are shown throughout the site, which seemed to be well received in the last hearings that we did. And then on the lot where the septic is, we don't really have a requirement to restore, but we wanted to restore with native plants in there. So you can see that there's additional red oaks in there, and also eastern red cedars along the property line to give the neighbors some screening, and also add some more habitat and make it so that the wildlife can move through that area under cover. And I guess I leave it for questions on that point.
So, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, I would address the variant, the waiver request at this time.
Okay.
So the existing house does not meet your setback requirements in Regulation 25C7C. And when we were at the hearing the last time, we took the position that the new house was actually being pulled back a little bit farther from the salt marsh than the existing house. And under the past practice of the commission, that was deemed to satisfy the regulation. But the commission took the position that the lateral expansion, where there would be a new house where there currently is not any house, triggered the applicability of the regulation, and we had not requested a waiver from that. So we are requesting a waiver now from 25C7C. And when I looked at your waiver requirements, you have waiver provisions in your bylaw itself, the one that was enacted by town meeting, and also in your regulations that the commission has adopted. And I'll briefly go through them. Under section 172-7, A, B, and C, you have waiver requirements. And they're in the alternative, which means that if the applicant satisfies one of them, you have the authority to grant a waiver. And so in 7A, a waiver can be granted for good cause shown and when resource protection would be enhanced relative to the pre-existing conditions. And as you heard Mr. Borselli say in his presentation, we believe that this project is an improvement over existing conditions and enhances the resource area values. And insofar as good causes for the house is not flood compliant. And we think that with climate change and sea level rise, there's a compelling need to raise it and replace it with a structure that is. So we think that you can grant a waiver under A. Under B, you are allowed to grant a waiver if portions of the buffer zone between the proposed project and the adjacent resource areas are previously altered. And in this case, they are. The existing house is there. There's lawn right down to the edge of the salt marsh. There's no vegetated buffer whatsoever. And the proposed project seeks to create one. So we think you can grant a waiver under B. C says that the project will improve the natural capacity of the resource area to protect the wetland values, and best available technologies are utilized. And there's some overlap, and I'm sorry for my argument being kind of mundane and boring, but I want to go through them. We're in litigation, and I want to be very careful. So we believe the project resource areas are improved, again, for the reasons already stated. The septic being moved farther away, the vegetated management plan, the mitigation plan, the addition of trees, etc. And also the flood compliant construction advances your interests of storm damage prevention. And obviously the best available technologies and methodologies are being used with the septic systems and with construction. So although we only have to meet one of those three, we think we meet each one of them, and that you could feel comfortable granting a waiver under the bylaw. Your regulations have a waiver provision as well in section 12, regulation 12, section 4. And the introduction of that section says that the commission is directed to consider the following criteria. How compelling is the need? To what degree are normal standards being put aside? And what degree will compensatory mitigation measures offset the impacts? So again, as far as the compelling need is concerned, climate change and sea level rise are happening. There's a compelling need to elevate this house and make it flood compliant. In addition, the house is relatively small by today's standards. It's about 1,250 square feet, and we would submit that there is a reasonable, compelling need that the family have a house that meets their needs. And in this case, the St. John's would like to have a bigger house for their family. And also, I'd ask you to consider the following, that when the house is elevated and compliant with FEMA standards, all the mechanicals have to be up in the habitable space, which are normally in the basement, but they can't be in this case. And that's taking up some of the space, and hence that justifies, we believe, why the house is a little bit bigger than the existing house. 2, what degree are normal standards being set aside? The existing house is in the buffer zone, including the 50-foot setback. The area between the house is already altered lawn. All of the expansion of the house is on already altered lawn. So therefore, the standards that are being asked to be set aside are relatively minor. Finally, what degree are compensatory mitigation measures offsetting the impact? You heard Mr. Borselli make the presentation and Mr. Garrelay. Upgrading the septic system with the denitrifying system will help remove nitrogen down to a very low level. Moving the system so the soil absorption system is more than 150 feet from the salt marsh will certainly benefit the waterway and the salt marsh. The project calls for 2,054 square feet of mitigation planting, including 7 trees. This will transform the existing lawn to a naturally vegetated buffer, which enhances your interest under your bylaw. And finally, the new flood compliant structure, which I've said 3 times already, will help advance your interests of storm damage prevention. Based upon all of the following, or all of the foregoing, I should say, we think the commission can feel very comfortable granting the waiver in this instance, and we ask that you do so.
Okay, thank you. Go out to the commissioners for any questions.
Can we fix the audio still? Is that an option? Is there anything we can turn off?
Not on mine.
All right.
Yeah, it's Mashpee TV.
I'm struggling with the mitigation plan. And that was, I think, part of the reason why I initially, when we had seen this last time, that was part of my personal reason for the denial. It didn't meet what we typically require for mitigation. We typically require the mitigation to be closest to the resource area. And sure, you have 10 trees, but how many trees are you taking down? And even the ones outside the 150-foot offset to the bordering vegetated wetland, it's still within the floodplain. So you're taking down another 7 trees in the floodplain. And you have mitigation in the road layout. It is not within the property boundaries that the applicant pays taxes on. It's not, so this area is not included in that?
It's not mitigation. That's just natural vegetation that we're restoring in that area.
Okay, so
All
your
the mitigation
calculations are
is
from what?
adjacent to the wetland.
So this is the only area that you're considering for the calculations?
That meets the calculations, correct.
And then the trees are where?
The green, the ones in green are as compensatory plantings for regulation 25 for trees being removed in the flood zone, and therefore they're being planted anywhere in the flood zone.
And then the trees that are removed for the construction of the house?
I'm sorry?
Are the trees that are being removed for the construction of the house being included into the mitigation plantings?
No, they're on the lot. They're the green trees that you see. They're not in the mitigation area, because they would displace the other nice wetland buffer that we're making. So because the trees that are being removed near the house, it's basically because of the driveway. So there's one just behind the garage toward the wetland that's not in the driveway.
So it's misleading to say that the 2,000 square feet of mitigation, including 7 trees. So it's not mitigation, it's replacement of trees being taken down,
Yeah, there's the mitigation.
which doesn't include trees.
There's the mitigation area for the square footage.
Yes,
And then the trees that are being removed in the flood zone are being mitigated for separately, in a separate area, just in the flood zone.
And the trees that are being removed within the buffer.
There's no trees being removed in the, well, I'm sorry.
There's at least 7.
Oh, I thought you meant down there where the mitigation is. Yeah, there's 1, 2, there's a chart. So there's, when we first were doing this, it was the 0 to 50. Of course, it went up to 75. So, yeah, there's a 16-inch tree, there's a double 6-8-inch tree, there's a 15-inch tree, an 18-inch tree, and a 24-inch tree. So there's 6 trees that were in the 150, in the 100 zone, and, I'm sorry, yeah, things changed. While we were doing this, that's when you guys made the buffer change. So this was, when we submitted this, it was a 50-foot buffer. In the process, you guys asked us to label the 75 and the 100-foot buffer onto the plan. So we changed that to that. But all the calculations at the time we did this were for the 50 feet and 100-foot buffer. So I'm not understanding why you don't think we're doing this correctly. We've done the square footage buffer is all right up against the BVW, and the trees that are being removed are, well, if you look on the thing, you can see that there's 5 trees that are within the, probably within the 50, certainly 4 of them are within the 50. There's 5 of them are within the 75, and then there's 2 that are outside the 75 but inside the 100. So I'm not following why you don't think we're doing an adequate job.
Okay, so the proposed is an 18-foot buffer, is that what that says?
Yeah, the square footage
What is the square footage of that area?
It's 2,054.
Okay. To say in this that 7 trees are added going above and beyond is misleading.
I don't think I wrote that. I don't know. What are you reading from?
Can we get the audio fixed? I can't focus. Whoa.
Yeah. And we're required 1,898 square feet, and we're proposing 2,054 square feet of mitigation. The trees that are being replaced are closer to the wetland than the ones that are being removed. They're making a nice canopy on the left side of the property that kind of lines up with the eastern red cedars that we have on the septic area. So obviously we've got a parking space in between there, but it is a corridor for wildlife to go through there. That whole side of the property is going to be a tree grove. It's not going to be used for picnics or anything else. It doesn't have an undergrowth, but it's all canopy on that whole left side of the property. There's nothing usable here for recreation or anything else. It's a really good, I don't see why it wouldn't be looked at as being a really good.
Well, because it's just replacing the trees that were taken down. It's not as though they're given
That's all I'm
extra
saying.
out of it's not like.
I'm not saying that it's any extra. It's compensatory for the removal of the trees.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I never said more than that.
I was trying to understand if they are mitigation or if they're replacement. It sounds like they're just replacement for the trees that are being removed.
Those are replacements for the trees being removed.
Okay. The driveway and cobblestones in the road layout, like that whole part, I don't know I don't know if you want to speak to the concerns of the neighbor.
Yeah.
If I can add on that, we had this discussion the first time around. If you look, the only place the cobblestone is within the road layout is where, from the middle of the center line of the road toward the house, except the lot that the homeowners own where the septic's going, then they own both sides of that, so we have cobblestone on that side of the road in that location.
And nobody owns beyond this? Nobody needs to travel down Mashpee Road West?
We went through this all before. I don't remember all the ins and outs of it, but we had this, we went through this all last year.
Yeah, and I think it was a problem then.
I thought
No, it was resolved.
I thought we addressed that, so, Alex, I have 2 comments about that. So what I had said the last time, and I read the neighbor's letter, and so when there's rights of way, persons that have the right to pass and repass have that right. And the person that owns the underlying, I'm going to call it the dirt, has an obligation not to unreasonably interfere or prevent that kind of access. But the person who owns the dirt does have the right to modify that as long as it does not unduly burden the right to pass and repass.
Sure, does the applicant pay taxes on that road?
Yeah, because they own it. They own both sides of that road, so they own to the middle, subject to rights of passage back and forth over that. But if I may, I don't mean to interrupt you, but the other point that I wanted to make is that the commission is not supposed to get into property rights matters. The commission is supposed to review projects for impacts
Sure,
upon.
Brian, but I'm not gonna approve a plan that's blocking someone's pass and repass. So I'm asking, do they, it's a paper road, or it's not, I mean, yes, it's on here. They own either side. Are they paying taxes on that middle strip?
They pay taxes on the land they own, and they own to the middle of the road. And if I can go further, there's not going to be an obstruction. Right now, the road is, I think, weren't you at the on-site, with the DEP? I forget, maybe you
I was
were.
not.
So, the road is not fully wide. It's about a lane or lane and a half. And it's either dirt or gravel. It's been some time since I've been out there. It's a very rural, bucolic, hardly used road that there's no one beyond the St. John's to get to. It effectively ends there. Oh, yeah, beyond the St. John's property, it's fully wooded within the layout of the road. So I would agree with your assessment that it's a paper road beyond the St. John's property, and heading, which direction are we going? South, southerly, heading towards, away from their house, the road starts to open up. But this is not going to interfere with any rights of passage whatsoever. And there was a request the last time about keeping the cobbles low so that they're passable, and I believe that we did that. So this is not going to interfere with passage.
Good for now.
I guess I can't focus with the sound like this.
It's difficult for me too.
I know.
I'm trying to concentrate.
It's really hard.
Okay, Rich?
After their presentation, I just feel what they're presenting leaves the property in better condition than what's currently there, so.
Okay. Thanks. Sandy?
I just had a question, not pertaining to that, but, I noticed that Drew had a condition that no work would commence if we approve this until it
Okay, moving on to the next hearing, 19 Keel Way, Julianne E. Rainville, trustee, Julianne E. Rainville. And a long stairway to dock, representatives Wet Tech Land Design.
Quar coconut fiber. And beginning and ends to the project. So we're going to stack in a pyramid. Of the coastal bank, which are sloughing. We show pictures of that. It's losing the top of the bank. However, that's at the bottom. So what's happening, there's slight erosion and slight sloughing. There's a lot of vegetation on this. It's well vegetated, but the slope is beyond the angle of repose. So there is this sloughing going on in occasional places. So we would come back before the board to ask for additional work. However, right now what's before you is a section approximately 10 or 12 feet long that goes underneath the dock. That's my presentation. I do have green cards, but I did send them to Stacy via email. I also have pictures if you care to look at part of the package. Thank you very much.
This is a nice project. This feels a lot easier to review. It's a good one.
I like the word easy.
Yeah, I don't have any real concerns with it.
Rich?
I don't have any.
Sandy? So, Krista, so you're going to add in 6 new pilings for the dock? Is that shown with caps on it? Is that?
Oh, no, no pilings. No, this is non-structural. All we're doing is adding coconut fiber rolls. That's it.
So how come the note for it says 10-inch marine pier at 16 feet driven and cut flush is on the plan?
16-inch diameter quar coconut fiber rolls cabled with duck bills and stake.
There's a whole note here. For the dock. Is that a leftover note?
Oh,
Yeah.
it's a leftover note. Sorry
Okay.
about that, yeah.
Because the pilings are highlighted there, so.
Yeah, sorry about that, yes.
All right. And
We're just
then,
trying to show what's existing, and I didn't separate it properly, sorry.
Okay, and I was out there and I saw all the existing vegetation, inside the fence, in between the pool and the fence, and the deck and the
Yes.
fence. Is that gonna be,
not touched.
Nothing's gonna be touched there?
No, no, it's well vegetated, it's stable up
saw a
above
note
and
there
on
on-
the slope. The trouble with the slope is that it's falling under its own weight in certain places.
There was a note on the plan that was sent, says all bayberry to be pruned and relocated along fence and irrigated. On the
That was an
plan
old plan, like I said, I've been around a long time. They have a vista pruning corridor that they have. We're not planting any bayberry, we're not planting any plants, so I apologize, it's a carryover,
Okay,
probably.
okay, just want to clarify that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm all set with my questions. Dan, you guys have anything?
No, I just wanted the commission to be aware, because I've been made more aware of it. This is one of the, there is multiple houses on Keel Way that have this, and there's also one easement I know of on Keel Way that has this for New Seabury as well, where they put core logs under their stairs. The bank is very steep on Keel Way, and a lot of the houses do have these stairs going down, so the core logs have been very successful in the other locations I have seen them. So this is a status quo project that's working directly on the coastal bank. There's no buffer included. This is work on the coastal bank, which is why it has to be a notice of intent application. So if it does need to be amended, my only question is, do you know of time frame? Are they looking at getting this started right away?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we want to do this in the sort of off-season
Okay.
right now. We want to get it done before March, as long as the weather permitting, of
All right,
course.
so for an amended order, if it were to come up, we would know, gosh, probably by July, sometime next year?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely, yes. We just want to follow through on this sloughing.
Okay.
I'm telling the clients to do that too. Take pictures, I've got a picture in here. If it continues, we'd like to approach this with the same methodology as before. But right now, we're doing the minimum, we're doing the part that's tucked underneath that dock that really needs it.
Oh, it definitely needs, I looked under the stairs today.
Yeah.
It absolutely needs it.
I was out there.
So, yeah, that's all great with us, that's for certain.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? If not, do we have a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to close an issue for 19 Keel Way.
Okay, any conditions?
I mean,
To the one that Drew mentioned?
is the contractor that you plan on using have experience doing this?
Yes, they have a lot of experience doing this. They're the ones that did the one on the easement that we talked about, the association. They're very
Yeah, I'm
versed in
not
this,
worried about
and
that.
sometimes I'll be the construction supervisor for the project as well. It depends on, it's a small project, so.
Yeah, the easement one came out fantastic, I will say that.
Okay.
So we don't have to worry about that note that Drew put in there.
This is true. I would only suggest that you make it a condition just in the event that the homeowners decide to go with a different contractor. I don't think they will, but it's a good condition to have in the event of that scenario.
And what does that look like? Do they submit something to you saying they've done it before?
Yes, we would just check their background and make sure that they have direct experience in installing soft solutions. Because I've seen many that have been installed by generic landscapers and they've been done incorrectly.
I didn't know they had time to do
It's a
that.
good point.
Sure, and I make a motion to close an issue for 19 Keel Way and that the project, with the condition that the project uses a installer that has experience with soft solutions.
And then documentation and experience provided the staff?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Second?
Okay, Rich, second. Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Okay, take a roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
All set?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dan, can you pass around
I was gonna say, I'm
the
gonna get everything
COCs to
rolled.
sign while we're doing our next bits?
Okay. All right, so we'll go back to the pre and post hearing agendas. Oh, I didn't want to rush through the 17. Since it was remanded, I want to make sure that everything was covered on that one, so,
That was really long.
yeah. Okay, so we have pre and post hearing agenda. We have minutes from 9:26 and 11:07 meeting minutes. That shows on the agenda, but do we have any question on those minutes? Do we have enough people to vote here? Because I didn't see
Who was
who
in
can
them?
vote on it, yeah. Usually there's, names are there, so.
Steve, Sandy.
Oh, okay, there it is, on the other version. I
Think
printed
you'll-
off, I'm using the one I printed off at home.
You could,
You only have 3 out of the 5 on each one.
Okay, so we'll skip them, push them back, okay. All right, next item, discussion, water quality, ongoing, I don't think there's anything there. And then regulation 25 on the drafts number 6. So I was thinking that, we can do a discussion and then have all commission members submit, to staff, the changes, what they would like to do in writing, similar to what we did in the last version. And it should help out with,
what,
with the committee to fine tune things.
say that again?
So I'm saying, we'll just have a discussion amongst the 4 of us,
Okay.
and then have us and the missing members submit, what changes they want in writing. Will that help out the subcommittee for the final changes?
In addition to all of the notes and such that are on here?
Yeah, because I have some issues with some of this.
Sure, yeah, let's talk through it.
Okay. I don't know, is that, you guys agree with that?
Yeah, no, it's,
Way
it's
to
like a
proceed on
beast,
it?
it's hard to know how to move forward, so, yeah.
I know, that's what I thought might help out, where we can talk about it and then submit some. Don't have to be long-winded, but you can say, okay, here's my objections to, say, performance standard number 1, whatever it is, and,
Okay.
You have any, you want to read a little bit more? Want me? I can go, I'll jump ahead. How's that sound?
You can lead the way.
Okay. All right. So I have questions on performance standard number 2. It says, existing buildings may be renovated or reconstructed, must be built using flood-resistant construction and limited to the legally permitted existing building footprint. I understand that, and I think DEP's heading that way, I believe.
Yeah.
But then new additional structures include not limited to building additions, sheds, pools, patios, retaining walls, except for raised septic system, fences, garage, and other premises, of course, that will not be allowed. I'm a little concerned with that because the building code says you can put an addition on a house in a flood zone.
Right,
And
but-
they're taking away, it sounds like we're taking away property rights.
Yeah, but like building code is meant to like protect the building. It's not meant to protect the resource area. And, I mean, we have been told by council that multiple times that like our purview is looking at the resource area and that building code isn't designed to protect the resource area or the wetland or any of that. It's designed to protect the building. So I hear you, and I definitely hear that. I don't know. It's like, how do you address the problem of too many houses in the floodplain? Like, when the storm does hit, that's going to hit us inevitably. How can our town be best prepared? And it seems as though not increasing in the floodplain is like the best way to be prepared. So, I don't know with that one.
Yeah, I don't, well, the building code says you can build additions in the flood zone. And if you have say you have enough property, say you in Papaneset, you have a small house and you want to put an addition on that small house, and it's flood zone compliant, and they can do it per zoning and the building code, I don't know how us as a commission can say you can't build an addition. Then the other thing too is fences. Fence is not a structure. That's a landscape feature, you know?
I mean, so is a patio.
Yeah, so if they're doing a pervious patio at grade, how does that?
If you have a dog and you want to keep the dog in a fence, now you can't put a fence up
Yeah.
to do that. And I guess, to your point, Steve, the way this reads, existing buildings may be renovated or reconstructed, but must be built using flood-resistant construction. Then it goes on, new additional structures including but not limited to buildings, addition, sheds, they're gonna deny those. So you're gonna be able to do additions to an existing structure, make it flood compliant, but then you can't put an addition on it?
Yeah, that's what it's saying. It's
I know, to his point, how do you, you're limiting people's abilities to add to their house, but
Sure, they can go up, they can renovate, but it's the consequence of living. I mean, yeah, you get a view, you get access, you get a lot of benefits for living there, and, like, there needs to be checks and balances on the development. That's the problem is there hasn't been.
no, I understand it, but I guess, again, you're limiting, like, someone wants to put a shed up to keep, they don't have a garage, so they have a lawnmower, they have, like, where are they supposed to keep that if they can't put a shed up?
I think there's always exceptions. I mean, people can come in
And ask for
you know,
a waiver.
if it's a hardship, not, you know.
Well, then it should be spelled out there.
Well, there you go.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I think this would, you know, this would get overturned in court in a heartbeat, just because, you know, if the zoning board and the building code allow additions in flood zone, as long as it's flood zone compliant,
Right, but again,
and,
yeah.
you know, so we're gonna say, okay, you're in a flood zone, so a landlocked parcel in Pompanesett, right, we have no mitigation requirements for that.
Landlocked, no.
Right. So we can't even do mitigation, so, you know, I don't know, I'm struggling with that.
Thank you.
Then number 5 is about increasing flow. Does that meet all the current Board of Health regulations? So saying, you know, for rate less distance from the current groundwater elevation, the maximum groundwater elevation is less than 7 feet. The Board of Health is 5 feet regulation, so I don't even know if that matches with Board of Health requirements.
So we can make a note that needs to be.
You know, and then, you know, number 7 going down, about the last sentence, laboratory tests and
But
field
wait, so this
investigation.
is making it more, you would need 7 feet rather than 5 feet. So
Right, but
it's
then-
making it more protected than what the Board of Health has. Because our charge is to protect the groundwater. The Board of Health is, right? That's what you're saying?
Correct, but then you're going against the Board of Health regulations.
No,
so
because it's the elevation,
They're 5 feet separation.
right, so we're asking for 7 feet. You can ask for something more. You can't allow something less. Correct?
Right, but we should match up with the Board of Health regulation. I understand that it's more protection for the groundwater, but then that's gonna, if the health department's saying it's 5 and the other one issuing the permit for the septic system, we're not issuing permits for septic system. So how can we dictate 7 feet when the health department says 5?
I mean, the health
And that's
department
what the
says.
DP regs are too.
We have to see where that came from. That's a good question, where it came from.
Yeah, that's, so, okay. And then, let's go on to number 7, on the 4th paragraph, talking about the coastal A zone. The building code is changing on January 1st. It's going into the 10th edition, so if we're still saying vertical walls are prohibited in the coastal A, other walls may be permitted, so we ought to match up to the building
But
code
we
there.
didn't know that at the time we did this.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, that just came in,
You should send that
I
in.
think at our last meeting
Right.
that day, I found out, so. I think we just ought to match that up with the building code. And then number 8, paving or placement of brick or concrete block for newer existing roads, driveways, pathways, and parking lots are prohibited. So we already have a paved road, say in Papaneset, you go down, say Jeep Place, one of those roads, it's paved road, and it gets wiped out in a storm. You mean the town can't put a paved road back in? Replace it?
What number are you on?
Number 8A. So. I have a, I see,
No, we talked about
let's take out the,
repairs, so I'm not sure we have got that wording in there yet.
yeah,
Yeah, we did discuss
Yeah.
repairs and
Right.
to amend the language to allow for
Right.
repair. That just makes sense.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's question I had, number 8. Number 11, performance standards for activities of work proposed in the buffer zone to the LSCSF, specifying regular 29 buffer zone and buffer strips. I just had a question on that. Is that, thought we talked about taking out buffer zones.
Like a buffer zone to the floodplain?
Yeah,
Drew wants us to get rid of buffer zones to the floodplain, but there's the discussion of, well, how do we as a commission relax the regulations when we have the situation we have in town with our water? And I mean, there's just like a blunt discussion about it, right? So, it's like saying, well, we don't have the capacity to do it. Okay, well then let's advocate for the capacity to do it. Rather, if we have it, why not protect it and make it better than just saying, oh, well, we can't do that, when arguably it just needs to be advocated for. That town meeting most likely would support the addition of support or staff to make that happen, is the sentiment.
okay,
So that's the discussion.
yeah, I thought, okay,
So
so,
a little more to it than that, part of my rationale for adding a buffer zone is that you have to have standards for that buffer zone, and right now there aren't any. So that's just something to consider. We have been discussing in the bylaw review subcommittee about adopting what's called a coastal resiliency zone, which is part of the Cape Cod Commission's, part of their plan for the flood zone regulations, and that it's more localized. It's not necessarily a straight up 150-foot buffer. It
Right.
varies from place to place. So where each committee member is kind of doing research on that right now to see how that might be able to fit in
Okay.
and substitute a buffer zone instead.
yeah,
Yeah, there was like some good mapping for that, right?
Yes.
I'd be open to that instead of buffer
Yeah.
zones, yeah.
That's what we're looking at, instead of a generic 150-foot everywhere, going with, more localized conditions and recommendations and, seeing where that lands.
Okay. Trying to think, I think that was it. I'm looking at number 15. Wasn't too sure. Yeah, I had a note originally, is there a regulation in the zoning bylaw addresses a standard or with the planning board? I don't know what this. Yeah, I had that issue, and then that was a question I had from before. So, those are the questions I had. Look at it.
So I don't know if it necessarily mine is a question or more just a thought towards these regulations, and this isn't really, this is kind of me, this is what I do for a full-time job, and my job is paid by taxpayers.
Sure.
And I understand everything that we need to do here for protection of the wetlands and everything like that. But if you put such severe restrictions, our building permit's gonna go down. Our people that either wanna do a raise and replace or wanna remodel their property are gonna have such severe restrictions that they're not gonna wanna do it. And how is the tax base, or how is more tax money gonna get revenue, generated in the town and pay? Cause we all know salaries and everything else aren't going down. So do you continually just raise taxes on people, or if properties do get fixed, obviously the town can raise taxes on those properties? So I guess it's kind of a, more of not a, just a thought on some of these regulations, because I think it can impact the revenues of the town.
So what I'm hearing is that the tax revenue of the town is more important than the resource area. And I don't think that's necessarily what you're trying to say,
I
but.
didn't say that, but I'm saying you have to think about that, because I've been doing my job for 28 years. Every 3 or 4 years, we renegotiate for a new contract. Everybody does that. Teachers, police, fire, DPW,
Sure.
all do that.
Sure.
Those salaries aren't going down. So how do you generate that money to pay the services that the town has to provide without going to every homeowner and say, let's just raise taxes?
So you increase conservation land, because conservation land has a direct correlation to lowering taxes. It increases the value of properties, so then the properties nearby have increased taxes because their value goes up, but it lowers the need of demand on services within the town for increased fire and police, because it's not just built out with more houses that then need more teachers, more everything. It helps stabilize that and helps lower taxes for people. I hear you, like, yes, everything's going up, health insurance, all of it. It's always negotiated for more. So you think that by saying people can't expand their house, that it would lessen the desirability of it? Is that what you're saying?
I think it was certainly restricted, because if people are thinking, well, you know, if I can't do an addition or add a garage or something like that, I just don't know how that, and I understand what you're saying with conservation. Obviously, you know, having multiple, 15, 12, however many developments you have, I understand that. But raising taxes on people isn't the best thing either.
I don't see the relation, so I need you to explain it another way for me, Rich. How does telling someone, everybody within a certain zone, that they can't increase the square footage, the footprint of their house? They can go up, they can go up. They can make it floodplain compliant. How does saying you can't increase your footprint relate to like increasing people's taxes?
Well, all I'm saying is if you allow people to do some of these projects, obviously the value of their home is gonna go up. So which means they're gonna get, and that's the price you pay. If you wanna do a 3,000 square foot, whatever it is, you know you're gonna get taxed more. And all I'm saying is if those larger projects aren't done, or people don't allow them to do it, where does that tax revenue come from?
I don't see the relation, because
I think this commission is, our responsibility is to the resource areas.
And I think I've expressed that.
Right. So I don't think that what you're saying is sort of people move out of town, or they won't, sell because they can't build a McMansion on this little piece of
Well, I don't want to use the term McMansion, because everybody doesn't build a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot house.
But they might build a 5-bedroom house.
Right.
Well, the way it was explained to me is, somebody has a small house in Papaneset, and they can't afford to do, because the FEMA regs and the building code say once you go past 50% of the value of the house,
Sure, you have to redo the whole thing.
redo the whole thing. So some of these people can't afford to do it, but they can put on a small 10-foot by 12-foot addition to get a little more space that stays under the 50%. They can afford that. They can't afford to tear down, rebuild, and do a whole new house.
How does that relate to taxes?
Because you're adding to the house is valued at a higher dollar, and you're gonna get taxed at that.
So those people's taxes are going up.
Yeah, but they chose to do that. That's all I'm saying. Like, I know if I build a new house, or I had an addition on it, it's gonna increase my property value, right?
Sure.
So I'm gonna get taxed on that increased property value. That's more revenue for the town.
So you're worried that the town's not gonna get enough revenue if people aren't expanding their houses?
I think it's certainly gonna diminish that, yes.
I don't see how that
I think
relates. I think
Rich's
that's a red
concern
herring. Yeah.
that for towns, they are classified as municipal corporations, and as such, one of their biggest revenue builders in every town in the country is building permits. So if you have stricter regulation, whether it be conservation or zoning or buildings or whatever it may be, you will have, the concern is there would be a reduction in building permits, and to offset that cost is to redistribute tax levels. So you'd have taxes going up, possibly, I'm not saying it would. You could possibly have taxes on individual properties going up where they haven't done any work on their houses, simply because there hasn't been as much revenue coming from, you know, a Board of Health permit or a building permit or things of that nature. I think that's what Rich is
Yeah, and
aiming
I
at.
mean, kinda on the flip side of that too, is if revenue isn't increased or generated, then you know what happens, layoffs.
I don't see how that concern relates to this. I think that concern relates to the town strategically planning their finances. I don't see how that is a trade-off for conservation. Like, that's why we are here, because if you don't speak for the trees, so to speak, corporations won't, because there's no money in the trees. Like, it doesn't work that way. So we are here to protect the interests of the resource area, the tax revenue and all that. The town can solve those problems, and they will have to solve those problems, but it doesn't need to be at the expense of the resource area. Or even, I don't think that needs to be, sure, we can know about it, but I also think there are other ways that money can be generated.
Absolutely.
So for a town like Mashpee that relies on residential taxes as their primary revenue source, I think that, you know, I understand all viewpoints that are put forth. I think everyone needs to realize that sewering is the biggest upcoming cost in town.
Sure.
And if your revenues go down, regardless of what the circumstances are, everyone's going to bear the brunt of cost of sewering moving forward. That is the biggest cost coming forward. I haven't even thought about town salaries or anything like that, but take a backseat to sewering, which will provide an enormous environmental benefit. So I think this really boils down to trying to strike a balance and, you know, taking into consideration what's reasonable as far as expansion and what is unreasonable and will result in, you know, adverse impacts to the resource area. So, you know, to come across as prohibiting everything outright without consideration of what is truly causing an impact and what may not cause an impact, that's where the balance comes in. So it's really about balance. And I can tell you right now that town's revenues have gone down substantially. And they're looking at, you know, trying to find creative ways to pay for substantial sewering costs upcoming. So that's where balance can really help things moving forward. You can still protect the environment while using common sense and trying to figure out what is truly impactful and what is innocuous. So that's really, you know, what's going to be the big thing moving forward is creating enough revenue for a multi-million-dollar sewering project, which will result in a substantial, the biggest environmental improvement in terms of water quality.
Okay. Sandy, do you have any comments now? Alex, you all set for now, or?
Yeah, I guess it's just.
Since you guys are both on the subcommittee.
I'm
right?
not.
You're
I
not
am
anymore?
not
You're not on
attending
anymore?
meetings and
Okay,
meetings.
so,
She's
okay,
still on.
so, sorry about that. Okay, I thought you still were.
She is on it, but
No, I mean, I just think that we have to put the environment first, and that is our charge. And that, limiting development is literally how you do that.
Excuse me.
And encouraging smart development, and, yeah, we'll see how this all shakes out. but I'm not against limiting expansion in the flood zone at all.
Are you all set, Rich?
Yes.
Okay. Any comment from the public on Regulation 25?
Good evening.
Yeah.
My name's Tim Gilday. I understand I have a 3-minute limit. That's correct.
Yep.
How are you?
Sure.
And I understand I won't get a response tonight necessarily.
Yeah, we're just taking comment.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I have corresponded with this commission previously this year. One of the things we asked for, not just for Popponesset, but for Mashpee Town homeowners, would be a meeting with Concom before Rule 25 is finalized. That's all I have.
Okay. That's the only thing that you're requesting, having a meeting with the commission, full commission?
Prior to finalization of the report,
Okay,
or, pardon me, the rule.
okay. Dan said that you, that was it the PBA, got a copy of it? That's you?
That's me.
That's you, okay, so you got a copy of the regulations?
That's correct, the draft.
The draft, okay, draft number 6. So,
We have the latest.
okay, do you guys plan to submit some comments back to us
Sure,
on this regulation?
sure.
Okay. Because that will help us out with, to have your comments on it, and any other resident that decides they want to get a copy of it and make comments on it, and then commission members are going to submit comments too.
Terrific. We
yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, and you're aware of the whole process of approving this regulation all the way through?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Do you have a time when you'd like that, those comments by?
So Regulation 25 has been kind of, as you know, a rolling thing on the agendas. So if you had them by the next one, December
In 2 weeks.
December 12th, or if you had it by January, that would be up to you.
Okay.
I would recommend sooner the better, only because I feel the state is getting very close to their end. So I would recommend having them the sooner the better, so the commission has more time. Or, not more time, but can get things going much quicker. So,
We'll do it ASAP.
excellent.
Okay,
Thanks for your help.
great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And sorry, I forgot public comment. I skipped over that. I missed that earlier. So anybody else in the audience?
That was during the
talk
appointing
anything?
time. So.
No? Okay. We got the updates, or Drew and Dan wrote down all the comments. Is anything?
Same thing, yeah, no changes.
No changes?
The only change would be John's Pond. We're looking at having the fish ladder area dredged. This season so far, we've seen an extraordinary large amount of sedimentation and leaf debris building up. So it's been taxing to go out there and clean it, as well as Santuit River. So, but that's what it is. That's it. That's it.
Okay. Anything else? No? Okay. Think we're all done?
Yeah, I mean, I will just say one thing for all these regulations, all the conversations that have gone on. Just keep in mind with all this stuff, it is a double-edged sword. You could make something that's extremely strong and powerful, and you could have something you don't see come forward that's a negative. You could make something that's not, and you could see something amazing come. And what I mean by that is with this, you might have a revenue issue, there is a concern with that. With any increase in regulation for any board, there's a concern with revenue issue when it comes to that, because as you said, people might not apply for certain things more. That's just the bottom line. But in saying that, that could also help the town to innovate for revenue boosters, whether it be resourcefulness or literally starting a new program that could be a revenue booster or whatever it may be. As well as it can give the residents an opportunity to say, hey, you know, I can't do an expansion on my house, but maybe I can apply a waiver and see if I can put a small 6x6 or 10x10 on piles next to the house, something of that nature. Have people get creative with their request, have them get creative with the more modernization of technology that comes out for construction, and give them an opportunity. So just keep that in mind with all these regulations, that there is always a side to the good or the bad, and it can be used either way. So just want y'all to let you know that, and
I know, I wish there was
better ways to incentivize
So,
than just like encourage. But
That's it from me.
Okay. We're all set. We have a motion to adjourn?
made.
Second.
Second, okay. Roll call vote. Alex?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.